Hey everybody, I'm back here surprisingly for a review. If you had watched my review last week, I said I wouldn't be doing a review on Friday, but technically this is Saturday. It's 1:30 right now, and so by the time I put this on YouTube, it will be Saturday anyways. Um, but just got back from the drive-in, which I hadn't been to the drive-in in forever. I only went to the drive-in because I like I said, I had to work. I had to work very late, and I worked till 7. And I figured the drive-in didn't start their movies till about 8 o'clock, so 8:30 or so. So I figured I had enough time to get off work, go to the drive-in, and it was gonna be about the same price that I would pay for a matinee. I didn't want to pay full price, especially for the movie I was gonna go see, which is Pain and Gain. I did not want to pay $10 to go see this movie. I am not a huge fan of Michael Bay. I really dislike the guy. I do like Bad Boys. I like his earlier '90s films, and I was like, I just don't. From the trailers, I was like, I don't want to see this really that much. And on and it was honestly, I was like, well, this will be maybe a decent drive-in movie. I will say this before I get into the review of the movie. I don't think I might be going to the drive-in um, anytime soon. This right now, my drive-ins have moved to digital projection, and I figured that maybe the digital projection would actually improve the drive-in experience a little bit more. No, it seems like it's making it just as bad or even worse. At one point, like I said, they were playing Pain and Gain and GI Joe 2 together, and GI Joe 2 was supposed to be on second, and Pain and Gain was supposed to be on first. And so I figured I would just stay for go to see Pain and Gain, and not stay for GI Joe 2. Unfortunately, for some reason, they switched up the movies, and so I got G.I. Joe 2 first, and then Pain and Gain. So I had to sit for G.I. Joe 2, which I'm not. Like I said, I like G.I. Joe 2. So, but I didn't really want to see that again, but I was like, whatever. I paid to see Pain and Gain, so I'll watch G.I. Joe 2. Also, at the same time, while G.I. Joe 2 was playing, they had almost right before the movie ended. Uh, the the whole screen burned out, and it stopped. They had to stop the movie altogether, and it was like, what the hell just happened? And it caused a lot of people to get mad. It took about 5 minutes to start the movie back up, and it had to where it was, and so it delayed the movie even longer. Luckily, right after GI Joe 2 ended, it took about 5 minutes before Pain and Gain and began, which was kind of nice. Which they didn't pee fart around, and they got right to the next movie, which was nice. But anyways, I know everybody wants to talk. After it was just an experience at the drive-in, and I don't know if I'm gonna go back anytime soon. But anyways, I know what you guys are all here to talk about with her or watching this, not to hear my experience at the drive-in, but to hear me talk about Pain and Gain. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of Michael Bay. I really hate with a passion Michael Bay, especially his recent films like Transformers. Like I said, I did like Bad Boys. Barely remember The Rock, but I remember that being good. I'm trying to remember what else. Armageddon is a bad movie, a really bad movie. Bad Boys 2 was alright too. But the Transformers movies were just really bad. Yeah. And then I heard he was doing this, and I was like, well, I was hearing that he was, instead of doing a $200 million budget movie, he was going to do a $25 million budget movie. And I read somewhere that Mark Wahlberg and The Rock didn't get like salaries or something like that. It's really weird. it was kind of nice to see. I was like, maybe this will be a step in the right direction. Maybe. I said, but even for the trailers, I was like, I don't know if I want to see this. I was like, I had my doubts, even though I like Mark Wahlberg, I like The Rock. The Rock's my boy, but I was like, I don't know. So coming out, honestly, I can't even believe I'm saying this, but I honestly liked this movie. I honestly like this movie. For being a guy that hates Michael Bay, this is one of his better movies since the 90s, like Bad Boys and stuff like that. And this movie takes place in the 90s. Things that are good in this is the actors, honestly. Mark Wahlberg's good. The Rock is interesting, to say the least. His character is probably the most bizarre. He 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 his character, he basically plays this guy who gets sent to jail, and because he gets caught with coke or something like that, he gets sent to jail. And during his time in jail, he becomes a born again Christian, and because of that, he doesn't like to get into violent conflicts, even though he could beat the shit out of people. And Mark Wahlberg comes to him and about this proposition about stealing stuff from Tony Shalhoub, which who I'll get into in a minute. And he is hesitant at first, but because of it's really weird. He's hesitant at first because he's a Christian. He doesn't want to do stuff like this because he knows he can go back to jail. Because of when he gets out of jail, he goes into he begins to live with this priest in this monastery, and at one point the priest decides to hit on him because he thinks he's gay, and because of that, Rox beats the shit out of him to the point that he almost kills him. And so he ends up changing his mind for some reason and ends up helping them out, and they end up gaining all this money, and The Rock ends up becoming a coke addict again and becomes really freaking crazy, like this unstable person. And it's kind of amusing, honestly. His role is really amusing in this. It's something I've never seen The Rock do yet. His behavior is really bizarre in this movie. The best part of this movie, hands down, goes to Tony Shalhoub. Holy cow, he plays this great scumbag guy that they steal money from, and he's hysterical. I mean, I can understand why they steal from this guy. He's a douchebag. He's a real douchebag, and he plays it to T. I love Tony Shalhoub in this. Like I said, Mark Wahlberg's good. The story is really interesting, to say the least. I think that was one of the things I really liked about this movie, was that it was really interesting and it was really crazy what these people did. And it's just like it was almost kind of unpredictable. Like, honestly, even though I didn't know the whole story about it, and like just the fact that what these people did is really insane. One of my biggest issues with this movie, though, was that even though this is a really dark movie about a really dark subject, because these guys are scumbags and what they did, and they do some really sick, sadistic things to these people, they try to make light out of it, and they try to make a comedy out of it, and that felt wrong, beyond wrong. And because of that, Michael Bay, that's where my issues really come into this movie, is that it tries to make a comedy out of some situations. Like, they're trying to cut up bodies at one point, and it's all like a comedy of errors when while they're trying to cut up these bodies. And at one point, they make the, the Rock is cooking these hands on a barbecue grill to burn the fingerprints or whatever, and it's done for laughs, and you're like, really? This is a real this movie is based off a true story. And then at one point it goes, this is really based off a true story, like when it's like just try to nail it down that it is based off a true story. And this is, from what I've been told, is really did happen. And because of that, you watch this and go, this is not funny. Is this really did happen? These happened to these real people, and this I heard somewhere that some of the victims of the real was it Sun Jim Gang or whatever were not very happy about this movie. And I can kind of understand. It is kind of sick that they try to make a light out of this. And I mean, these guys got what they deserved, absolutely. I mean, they tried, basically what they do is that they're trying to, Mark Wahlberg wants to try to get the American dream and try to make a better life for themselves, but they go take it a little too far, obviously. I also had issues, I know this is based off a true story, I don't know the whole story though, but I have take issue with, I think I call bullshit on some of this. I know that I almost guarantee that they took a lot of liberties on some of this story. Like, the fact that, alright, let me go into a little bit of spoilers, but the fact that, okay, they get Tony Shalhoub, and Tony Shalhoub's character, and his name's Victor Crenshaw, and they kidnap him and tie him up to a chair and like blindfold him with like duct tape. And Mark Wahlberg tries to disguise his voice because he's Tony Shalhoub's personal trainer at this gym. So he thinks that obviously he thinks that if Tony Shalhoub hears his voice, he'll recognize him instantly. So he tries to disguise his voice. So, but at one point, while sitting on the chair, he smells this distinct cologne that Mark Wahlberg wears all the time. Because of that, he figures out who he is and calls him out by name. And it's their identities are not secret. His identity is not secret anymore. So they steal his money, but they end up still stealing his money. And then they tried to murder him, basically, and try to make it look like it was an accident in the way that he died, while also murdering him. But they fail in that attempt, and Tony Shalhoub still lives. This is where the problem I have. Tony Shalhoub knows the name of the guy. He knows, and obviously the cops, when he's sent to the hospital, cops come to him, but they don't believe his story because he's a drunk. They found his alcohol level was too high, and they think he's delusional. Here's my problem with that. Wouldn't they think it's a little suspicious that this guy who was at one point very rich, like days before was very rich and had a lot of money, and now is very poor and has nothing? Don't you think that you would kind of look into these names that he's talking about and maybe start believing a story? I don't understand that. It makes no sense. I don't understand. I can't grasp how it took this long to find these guys. I mean, it kind of does drive you nuts. I mean, it's kind of, is it Michael Bay trying to point out how incompetent cops are? I don't think they're that incompetent. did it take that long for them to 6 months to find these guys like they say it does in the movie? Also, I have kind of more I kind of call bullshit is that, you know, they kind of at the end of the credits they talk about what happens, you know, to all these guys, and the Victor Crenshaw character played by the character that Tony Shalhoub plays, they reveal is not the real guy's name, the real guy that Tony Shalhoub's playing name in real life, and so that makes me, because to protect his name, in order to protect his name, which makes me think that maybe there was more liberties taken with this movie, and that's kind of bull. Like, I don't know. I have to look up the whole story. I don't know. Maybe I'm completely wrong on this. I would like to try to find out more about this story. I actually do. I'm going to try to find more about this story. Honestly, this is a good. Honestly, this was. It has its flaws, but it is kind of a guilty pleasure. In a way, because it is kind of sick that they. If you could look past, it is kind of hard, but to look past the whole fact that they make light of this really sick story, like the sick things that these characters do. I heard the victims say that they did not like that they were making these characters out to be hero, like trying to make them sympathetic. Honestly, I did not feel any sympathy for any of these assholes that I did in this movie. I still didn't. They got everything that they deserved. They took it way to the extreme. I liked, but as much as I liked the characters, I wanted every one of them to. I wanted every one of them to get what they deserved. So, you know, I don't know. What else I gotta talk about this movie? Yeah, before I get into that, I don't know. It has a lot of the same Michael Bay stuff that you expect from his films. It has a lot of the same style that you expect from his films, like the slow motion, the constant slow motion. There's a lot of slow motion in this movie. There's the circle around camera that he used in I forget, Bad Boys 2, where he like basically used like took a camera around in a circle and went around 2 rooms basically like he did in Bad Boys 2. It's kind of, if you've seen it, Bad Boys 2, you know what I'm talking about. It's kind of hard to explain. What other things? Yeah. There's this constant use of narration in this movie that is kind of annoying. Like they use the narration at the beginning, like to explain these characters' backstories. Like it's like inner monologues of these characters' backstories, and it is good at first, but then they continue to use it so that these characters can give their inner thoughts of what they think about what's going on, and it kind of gets annoying after a while, and it's prevalent in this movie. It didn't kill it for me, so like Savages did, but it's not that. But it does get annoying after at times. What else could I talk about? Yeah, Michael Bay. Yeah, there also is. You could also argue. I don't think there's as many racial stereotypes as you see in the Michael Bay films as there usually see in Michael Bay films. I don't think there's as many as you see in like his previous films. But there's a lot of like a lot of sexualizing women in this movie. I'll say that. If you find that disgusting about Michael Bay's films, there's definitely a lot in this movie. But you know, honestly, this is one of his best films. It's not a perfect film, but this is one of his best films. And that's coming from somebody that doesn't like him almost at all. And I enjoyed this movie for the most part. It is an enjoyable flick. I mean, it's like I said, it's not perfect, but it is an entertaining. It is a really interesting film. Like I said, I think the story is what kept my interest. Like just the real bizarre stuff that happens in this movie. Um, Anyways, I'm gonna get off here. I think that's all I could talk about. The rest I could have left to talk about with Pain and Gain. Go see it. It's not a bad flick. Next week I will be back. Well, it's the start of the summer movie season, which is one of my favorite times of years because we get all the big summer blockbusters and all that stuff. This year I don't feel like it's gonna be as good as last year's because we had like what we had Avengers, Prometheus, Amazing Spider-Man, and Dark Knight Rises last year. This year we don't have that many like big blockbuster, those big movies that stand out like we did last year. But I think this year could be good. We start off with Iron Man 3 next week, which is getting really well received right now. So I am really looking forward to it. I love the first two, so I'm looking forward to this one. So I'll be back next week, definitely Friday. I don't know if I'll do it midnight or whatever. I don't think I am. I'll just come back Friday afternoon with a review for Iron Man 3. Until then, I'll talk to you guys later.